Hey, Joe Bob Briggs still here. You know, I forgot to mention that the credits of Alien 3 are longer than Alien 3. 6 minutes of credits on that baby. Whoa! Anyhow, you gotta love that ending. Sigourney Weaver's backward swan dive into a vat of boiling lead. You know, they had a big debate about that, and they didn't shoot that ending until right before they finished the movie. All right, the long-awaited Barbarella in just a minute, but I want to remind you that next week on Monstervision, we have the rarely seen Serpent in the Rainbow, Wes Craven's movie about Haitian voodoo that many think is the best movie ever made. He actually went to Haiti to make that. I think it's the only movie filmed in Haiti in 40 years or something. But our first movie next week is Steel Dawn, which is Patrick Swayze's version of The Road Warrior. You've kind of got to see that to believe it. The first time on TNT, next week on Monstervision. That's next week. But right now we've got Barbarella, beginning with the famous Barbarella theme song. Ba 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 Barbarella, Barbarella psychedella. There's a kind of cockle-shella about you, Barbarella. Ba Barbarella. They don't write lyrics like that anymore, do they? Barbarella, Ba Barbarella. And of course, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jane Fonda as that kooky outer space traveler in shiny black leather and go-go boots, the peace-loving, free-love gal who goes in search of missing scientist Duran Duran. But in order to do that, she has to steer her rocket to the distant land of Tau City, which could still be living in a primitive state of neurotic irresponsibility. I was hoping we could have Jane on tonight to talk about the deeper meanings of this bizarre fantasy comic book from the 60s, but I'm told Jane is not too fond of this movie. So, is that right? Is Jane kind of down on this movie? Anyway, we understand, Jane. It's only acting. We know. You know, this is like a science fiction Alice in Wonderland for drug heads. So, if you haven't seen it, there's no way I could possibly explain it, so I'll just give you those drive-in totals, and we'll roll it. We have 14 dead bodies, 1 vicious parakeet attack, 1 Roman orgy, 1 portable brainwave detector, shag-carpeted spaceship, 2 crash landings, 1 giant rubber stingray, 1 vicious biting sharp-toothed doll attack, demonic children, flower-eating, see-through man, flying pod attack with fireballs, 1 burning outer space city, snowball foo, green laser foo, and of course, the famous love-making tube. I give it 2 stars, but 3 stars for camp value. Okay, let's go. Oh, and this is one of the most famous title sequences ever filmed, in which Jane Fonda pretty much strips off every article of clothing she's wearing as the Barbarella singers croon, "Get me up high, teach me to fly, electrify, and dazzle me with rainbow colors, fade away the duller shade of living." Don't you think we could use those sentiments today in the 90s, you know? As the president of the Sun System would say, love. That's in the movie. That's how they greet each other. Love.
Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and Barbarella on TNT.
And so Barbarella's journey to find Duran Duran begins as she is taken captive by twin demon children and pulled across the horizon by a giant rubber stingray. You know, it's hard to believe today, but the hype on this movie was huge. There were 2 eagerly awaited science fiction movies in 1968. One was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the other was Barbarella, which, after it came out, some people wanted to call it 2002: A Space Idiocy. But it was a big-budget production all the way. It was produced by Dino De Laurentiis. It was directed by Jane Fonda's husband, the Frenchman Roger Vadim. It was actually their 3rd movie together. Roger Vadim directed her in 2 French films. They met during the first film, The Circle of Love, in 1964. Then they got married during the filming of the second film, The Quarry, also called The Game Is Over, in 1965. And Roger was famous for putting his beautiful wives and mistresses in his movies, because his very first movie was And God Created Woman, starring his young wife Brigitte Bardot in the nude back in 1956. Then he made movies with Catherine Deneuve and, did I say that right? Catherine Deneuve and Annette Streuberg. You remember her? He married her too. Anyhow, Barbarella was based on a French adult comic strip that was considered very hip at the time, and the idea was to do a high camp version of it, and Roger Vadim gave interviews saying he wanted Barbarella to be an uninhibited girl, not weighed down by the thousands and thousands of years of Puritan education, meaning she has sex every chance she gets. This was in the free love years when they made movies where everybody had sex for fun, you know? No marriage, no jealousy, no demands, no real partnerships, just an endless kind of Hugh Hefner, Playboy After Dark universe. And the result for Roger Vadim is what you see here in this movie, which confused everybody because it's not always clear just exactly when he's joking and when he's not. So the critics were violently divided about whether it was a good movie or a bad movie, and I'll go into that a little later, but right now I know you're just aching to see the famous killer doll attack, so better roll the film. You know, when you think about it, though, how can there be thousands and thousands of years of Puritan education? Because there can only be 400 years of Puritan education, because before that we didn't have any Puritans. You know, plus Roger was from France, so how many Puritans did they have over in France? I mean, when the French president dies, don't all 8 mistresses come to his funeral? It's not like Puritanism has ever been that popular, you know? How many hours a day do you waste on the worldwide wait, watching pictures of supermodels peel down your computer screen 1 millimeter at a time? Hey, look, Cindy Crawford's kneecap. Have a beer, we'll wait for the thigh to come up. Well, why do that when you could be wasting more time at the Monstervision website, 24 hours a day, located at tnt.turner.com/Monstervision. We got at least 5 different ways to fritter away your life acting like you've actually got something to do.
Can't get enough horror in your life? Then visit the Monstervision website at tnt.turner.com/Monstervision. Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and Barbarella on TNT.
All right, I happen to know that there are approximately 70 seconds of footage missing from the scene where Barbarella does it the old-fashioned way with Ugo Tognazzi. As they circle on the ice and we hear that hit song, Down, 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 Drag Me Down. Now, I don't know why the 70 seconds are out of the movie. I'm not going to ask anybody why the 70 seconds are out of the movie. Let's just assume one of the executives at TNT is not too crazy about that scene, okay? Somebody closely connected to TNT. That's all I'm going to say about it, all right? There were some theaters, by the way, that gave this movie a voluntary X rating when it came out. The year 1968 was the first year the X rating existed, and this movie was rated under the old system, so the actual rating was M for mature audiences, and normally that meant you could get in with your parents. But some theaters hiked it up to an X just to make sure they didn't get any flack from the local preacher. It's kind of a harmless film, but its reputation was that it was a sex orgy. Okay, as Barbarella crash lands for the second time, let's rejoin our heroine and see what dazzling new wardrobe, or lack thereof, she crawls out of her spaceship wearing this time. Roll it. It's kind of like a combination of Jules Verne, Flash Gordon, the Marquis de Sade, Salvador Dali, Dante's Inferno, and Disney World on Ice, all combined in one movie, which means it's kind of an inspired comic, satirical, tongue-in-cheek, high camp, high concept. It means it doesn't make a lick of sense, is what it means. I know, you've been hearing all these rumors about what happens in the Monstervision chat room, and I swear that girl told me she was 18. But it can get pretty hairy in there on Saturday nights, so I would advise you to check it out, unless you have, at any time in your life, been married to me. That address is tnt.turner.com/Monstervision, and yes, Yvonne, that does mean you.
Calling all mummies, ghouls, and vampires to Joe Bob's Rec Room now at tnt.turner.com/Monstervision. Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and Barbarella on TNT.
So now Pygar, the depressed angel, is going to get a little reward from Barbarella, who can apparently cure all ills with her favors. But did you notice Professor Ping, that guy? Marcel Marceau in his first speaking role, saying things like, the angel is aerodynamically sound. It's all a question of morale. He should have kept his mouth shut, shouldn't he? I mean, who says, I know, we'll use Marcel Marceau and have him talk? Oh, anyway, I mentioned before that the critical reaction to this movie was wildly mixed. Newsweek called it Roger Vadim's best work to date. And the New York Times called it dead, humorless, and puerile. What's puerile? I don't know. Variety called it artless, tasteless, misdirected vulgarity. In general, guys liked it more than girls. It wasn't exactly a feminist statement, you know. Jane Fonda was interviewed about her character while they were filming it in Rome, and she said that Barbarella is not a vamp, and she's not promiscuous, and she's not a sexually liberated woman. She's just born free. Does that help? No? Where do you meet one of these women? She has sex with pretty much everybody she comes in contact with, but she's not promiscuous. It's sort of a 60s concept. Unfortunately for us, by the time the 70s rolled around, the women had wised up to that business. You know, 'cause, hey, baby, what's wrong? Don't you believe in free love? No, I do not, you moron. See, that whole deal didn't last very long. All right, back to the movie. Hey, man, I'm just doing my own thing in my own space and time. Remember when Peter Fonda said that? You know? See, Jane Fonda and Peter Fonda were both on the cutting edge of this 60s sexual freedom stuff. Of course, today, if you say, I'm doing my own thing in my own space and time, the girl's going to say, good, have sex with yourself.
And Barbarella on TNT.
So, as Barbarella goes screaming down the laundry chute, temporarily saved from the Chamber of Ultimate Solution and the evil lesbian queen, it might be a good time to read a little viewer mail in the feature we call Joe Bob's Advice to the Hopeless. And to help us out is, the decidedly non-lesbian TNT mail girl.
And what does that mean?
I just said you are not a lesbian.
Oh, how do you know that?
Oh, you are a lesbian?
I'm not going to answer one way or the other. I just don't think that you should assume someone's sexual preference.
Well, honey, you can be a lesbo. That's fine. Here on Monstervision, we are an equal opportunity lesbo-loving employer here. Even when my Baptist brothers get mad at us, it's fine.
You're amazing.
Thank you. What you got for me?
I have a letter for you. This is from Joelle Groendes, San Francisco, California.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Don't go into denial over stuff like that. Dear Joe Bob, I'm just writing to thank you for your help. The night you were on for the very first time, you showed the fog, and I was very, very pregnant and 5 days overdue. It was hot. I was irritable and over being pregnant. That very night, I went to bed, and at 4:15 a.m. that morning, lo, my water broke. Coincidence? I think not. That little girl didn't want to miss another week of Monstervision. Were it not for your show, your witty retorts, who knows how long she would have been in there. Thank you for giving her some incentive. Signed, your faithful viewer, Joelle. P.S. Here's a photo of your youngest viewer. And here she is, the photo of little Addison Pearl Groendes, if you can see that. Now look at the expression on her face, though. See that? I think she's watched one too many Adrienne Barbeau movies, you know? Isn't she cute, though?
She is adorable.
Starting to get that maternal instinct looking at that?
What do you mean? Okay.
Nothing, just checking. Anyway, I want to thank you, Joelle, because that's probably the first time I've ever assisted in a delivery. I think I've assisted in some conceptions, but let's not go into that, okay?
Yes, let's not.
Don't heckle the host.
I am not a lesbian.
I didn't say you were a lesbian.
No, you can even ask my sister. I am not a lesbian.
Oh, your sister.
She is not a... It's just that, look, people misunderstand what they hear on TV. I mean...
Back to the movie. Talk about it. Just talk it out.
I don't
Tell me
think-
about it.
I don't
It's
wanna
hip
talk
to be a
about
lesbo. It can help your career.
Can we talk about something else?
I don't think you're a
I'm not
transvestite either.
listening.
I'd enjoy finding out. Want to win a Monstervision t-shirt? Who wouldn't? Does the Pope go in the woods? Try your luck at the Monster Caption Contest. Want details? Go to tnt.turner.com/Monstervision, and the rules will be staring you right in the face. But if you don't win, don't come whining back to me, because I don't have any sympathy for people who enter contests.
Play the Monster Caption Contest and win a free t-shirt at tnt.turner.com/Monstervision. And Barbarella on TNT.
Yes, that was Jane Fonda's most famous line, "Decrucify the angel, or I'll melt your face." Followed by John Philip Law's famous line, "An angel doesn't make love, an angel is love." Followed by the vicious parakeet attack. Where are we in this story? I have no idea. There are 1,000 characters in this movie, and half of them have plastic breast cones. You probably wouldn't know it, but this cast is full of internationally distinguished actors, including like Milo O'Shea, the guy who plays the concierge. Milo O'Shea in 1 year played principal parts in 3 movies: Ulysses, which may be his most famous role, followed by Romeo and Juliet, he was the friar, followed by Barbarella. And it never was quite the same for Milo after that. A few years later, he was co-starring in Theater of Blood, that Vincent Price movie that we sometimes show on Monstervision. Okay, back to Barbarella. The full name, by the way, is Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy. Roll it. This is one of those movies that they make in Italy in English, but everybody speaks the language of their own country when they're filming it, and then they dub in the voices later. So I always wondered how they do that, because the guy says, "I love you," and the girl says back to him, "Te amo also, je t'aime Polski." And they dub that into English, and it looks normal. They love to dub in Italy. They even dub Italian actors who are speaking Italian in real life for Italian audiences. In other words, the guy speaks Italian on the set, and then he comes into the studio and he dubs the Italian he already spoke, and then they add some more dialogue in there after he's finished, and then the whole thing is shown to an audience that could have understood him in the first place. Those wacky Italians, I don't get it.
And Barbarella on TNT.
And that was David Hemmings as the inept inventor who does the famous hair-curling sex scene with Barbarella when they take pills and touch hands. David Hemmings at the time was one of the most famous and recognizable actors in the world, thanks to his starring role in Blow Up, the only film by Michelangelo Antonioni that anybody could ever sit through, and that's why he gets special billing in the opening credits. And did you notice something else about those opening credits, the ones that keep spilling out of Jane Fonda's spacesuit as she gets undressed? 8 writers. I counted 5 French guys, including the guy who wrote the original Barbarella comic strip, 2 English guys, and 1 American, Terry Southern, who wrote the other famous erotic comedy of the 60s, Candy. And that probably explains why, as we now move to the conclusion of Barbarella, I have no idea what's going on, so just roll it. One thing I can guarantee you, though, it'll be groovy. It'll be psychedelic. It will be a happening. Love. Okay, well, we got through that one, didn't we? Including the end credits lounge song, "An Angel is Love," performed by Bob Crew and the Bob Crew Generation Orchestra. Okay, guys, get on the phone. Tell them they can bring Ted and Jane back into the country now, all right? I assume that I'll be here next week when we will have a truly fabulous double feature. We have The Serpent and the Rainbow, which many regard as Wes Craven's best movie, and our opening film is Steel Dawn, starring Patrick Swayze trying to be Mad Max in the Namibian desert. It's the Patrick Swayze version of The Road Warrior, I kid you not. All right, is that it? Can we go home now? Did you guys hear the one about the woman who got a divorce because her husband beat her all the time? Well, she remarried, but her second husband ran out on her, so she got another divorce. And then years went by and she started getting lonely, so she decided to look for another husband. So she put an ad in the paper and it said, "Wanted, husband, won't beat me, won't run out on me, good in bed." So several days later, the doorbell rings. The woman answers it. She finds this man standing there with no arms and no legs. "I'm answering your ad," he says. And she says, "Well, you got no arms, so you can't beat me. You got no legs, so you can't run out on me. But how do I know you're any good in bed?" The man says, "I rang the doorbell, didn't I?" Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. Two grave diggers are busy digging a grave in the cemetery when they hear music. Approaching the sound of the music, they find that the music is coming from Mozart's grave. But it sounds like it's being played backwards. So they run over to the caretaker and they say, "We were at Mozart's grave and there's music coming out of it, but it's playing backwards." The caretaker says, "Of course, that's Mozart decomposing." Should have stuck with that first one. It'll just take a minute, all right? The audience just wants to know that when we promise midgets, we deliver midgets. We are the most midget-friendly network on cable. We love the little people. So come on out. Please. Would you just do this? Dwarves, elves, the little elfin ones. We love them all. All right, this is not funny. You said you were going to do this. You know, get your little 3'8" hiney out here now, okay? I mean, if you don't get out here right now, you're going right back to the room. You want to go to the room? And this time, no snacking, all right? That's it. Well, he had to run off to one of his many midget charity events, but you'll see what I'm talking about tonight, only on Monstervision, all right? Check it out. Okay, get the damn harness.
Watch Troll, next on TNT's Monstervision.
Hey, Joe Bob Briggs here with the #1 rule for a TNT Monstervision movie. Anybody can die at any moment.
Save yourself from Troll. Coming up next on TNT's Monstervision.
We have this movie tonight. You know, people don't believe this when I tell them. We have this movie tonight called Troll, where Sonny Bono gets attacked by fungus-faced midgets and turned into a giant Caesar salad with a bad singing voice. Now, I realize this is roughly what Cher did to him in the divorce settlement, but we have it with a lot more slime spewing. And then our second feature is Trancers, another great low-budget 80s movie that doesn't make a lick of sense. So this is one of our theme nights on Monstervision. The theme is movies that start with TR, Troll and Trancers. The programming guys were drunk and they said, "Oh hell, what are the next two on the alphabetical list?" That would be Trancers and Troll. You know, well, mix it up so they don't know how we came up with them. Show Troll first. Anyway, I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and I have a new rule for surviving in the modern world. This is what I want to talk about tonight. Never date a woman between the ages of 37 and 41. You know why? The dinner conversation is likely to go like this. You say, "That's a beautiful dress you're wearing." She says, "If you think it's sexy, perhaps you'd like to fertilize my ovum tonight." See, these women think they have to have a baby within the next 5 minutes or their life will be over. Even the ones who already have babies. So if you happen to be caught in their crosshairs, you could all of a sudden find yourself waking up the next morning next to the teddy bear on her chenille bedspread screaming, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And you know what's really sick about it? Some of them don't even want a husband. If they could get away with it, they'd get you to plant that seed and then they'd catch a Greyhound to Wasilla, Alaska and raise the kid among the Eskimos. And if he ever grew up and started asking about his father, she'd say something to him like, "Oh, he was that guy back in Texas who didn't love you." Well, of course he didn't love you. He didn't know you existed. We've got women all over the lot pulling a Madonna and deciding that I want a little human being in my life. Of course, that doesn't mean that 6 years from now, when those car payments start piling up and the little booger is enrolled in Montessori school, she might not miraculously find your phone number and suggest you're a worthless scumdog for not sending $9,000 a month for your son's education. But I've got a better idea, right? Why don't we just find one guy, preferably some dim-witted hunk named Enzio, who likes women who are 37 to 41. We hire him to impregnate all of these ladies. I mean, the meanest judge in the world is not going to make him pay child support for 700 kids. And meanwhile, it'll be fun for Enzio. I mean, we can make the ladies give him plenty of orange juice, buy him a little vitamin E from time to time, take him to dinner on the night before they start ovulating. And that way the rest of us would be out of danger, you know what I mean? See, I'm still not ready for the 90s, and the 90s are almost gall darn over, aren't they? Speaking of people who appear to be acting under the influence of radioactive green slime, this week's flick is Troll, the story of a family that moves into a new apartment and signs a lease without asking whether there are monsters in the laundry room first. So they deserve everything they get when Torok the Troll possesses the body of their little snitty daughter and starts going door to door, turning people into botany experiments and trashing their apartment with jungle vines. Fortunately, June Lockhart is the good witch living upstairs playing with her pet mushroom and saying, "Remember when I was on Lassie?" We're talking Condo Vegematic, so let's take a look at those drive-in totals. 9 dead bodies, 2 breasts. We will not be seeing breasts on TNT. I have to point that out every week. 2 quarts blood, 3 great mush-face transformation scenes, 8 beasts, including Sonny Bono, gratuitous Shelley Hack, fungus foo, and with a special appearance by Julia Louis-Dreyfus as the naked nympho in the forest. 2.5 stars. Check it out. We're going to be here all night showing classics from the vault of Empire Pictures, the lowest budget studio in Hollywood throughout the 80s. Roll it.
Back to Monstervision host Joe Bob Briggs and Troll on TNT.
Well, I promised Sonny Bono, and as you can see, we delivered Sonny Bono. Sonny as a jaded, liquor-guzzling playboy. This is one of about a dozen film roles Sonny has had, beginning with the immortal Good Times in 1967, and including such classics as Murder in Music City and Airplane 2. And is Sonny still the mayor of Palm Springs, by the way? Does anybody know? Congressman. He's Sonny Bono, U.S. Congressman. Representative Sonny Bono is who we're talking about tonight. Those who remember the 70s will recall that Sonny and Cher used to have a new TV show every year, and then it'd get canceled every year, and then they'd start it up all over again. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, the Sonny Comedy Review, Cher, that was the whole name of that show, just Cher, and the Sonny and Cher Show. That's the one they did after they realized that separately they couldn't make it in TV and they had to be together for people to watch them. Only by that time they were divorced, and Cher had a baby by another guy. And wasn't it Greg Allman? Who did she have the baby by? It was Greg Allman, only she was already divorced from him by the time the baby was 3 months old, and they were trying to use their daughter Chastity on the show, fighting over her. No, she's going to be on my show. No, she's going to be on my show. And all this happened in about 6 years, and then suddenly it was over. Enough Sonny and Cher. Forget it. No way. We're sick of it. Stop. Which is why, less than 10 years later, you find Sonny doing a bit character part in Troll. Back to the movie. See, we take care of you here at Monstervision. I got you, babe. You know who was on some of those Sonny and Cher shows? The great Flip Wilson. Loved him. See, Sonny and Cher were trying to do comedy, and neither one of them has a comic bone in their bodies, and so they hired a bunch of comic actors to surround them on those shows. Murray Langston, later known as the Unknown Comic, Terry Garr, great comedian, Shields and Yarnell. You know, I almost went through the rest of my life without remembering that Shields and Yarnell exist, but now it's too late, see?